We've been waiting for this moment to cover the Chris Paddack trade to the Tigers. We love a good AL Central trade. What did you think of the deal?
That was the start of, I think, what they're going to do, which is Paddack is was one of 6 impending free agents that they had. I think he was probably, third or fourth most valuable in that group. Harrison Bader, Willie Castro, Danny Coulombe, and then Paddack they traded. And then they also have Christian Vasquez at catcher and then Ty France. I think they're still sort of in the wild card mix. I mean, their playoff odds are like 10 or 15%, but I think the Paddack deal, doing it so early in the week, 3 days out from the deadline, I think signals they're going to trade all of the impending free agents that they can get some kind of value for. And, not that Paddack had huge value or anything, but they dumped a bunch of salary, I think $4.5 million, which I know that doesn't really mean anything except to the poll lads, the owners. But I think that was part of the equation with that trade. And then they got a catching prospect back who seems like a decent 19-year-old catcher prospect from the Tigers. But I would expect kind of that to be the first step with a bunch of very similar moves the rest of the next couple of days.
So are we talking Duran? Are we talking Jax? Are we talking Castro? Are we talking who? Are they going to go all in and just dismantle and start over? And then if they do that, how does Carlos Correa feel about that? Byron Buxton feel about that? Because these guys signed these long-term deals and now they're kind of stuck.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't rule out them trading Duran, Jax, somebody like that, even maybe Brock Stewart, relievers who have 2 or 3 more years of team control. But I think they're in a position where they would need to kind of be blown away to accept one of those offers. I'm not saying they wouldn't do it or that that might not happen, but I think their focus is going to be, you mentioned Castro. I think he's definitely going to be traded. I think Harrison Bader is definitely going to get traded. I think they'll probably find a small deal for Danny Coulombe, who can just be a second lefty in some contenders' bullpen. If they get blown away on an offer for a non-impending free agent, like some of the names you mentioned, I do think they're somewhat open to it. But then the other thing, we couldn't – every time I'm on, we talk ownership to some degree with the Twins. And I think the uncertainty of we're now 9 or 10 months in to the Twins having the team for sale and they haven't actually sold it. It's difficult, I think, for the front office to know what their future is. So to trade somebody who is a very good player like Jax or Duran, but also is team controlled, not just this season, not just next season, but 2027, I think that is a big leap for a front office and an ownership group that is sort of in flux right now.
Does that give not no hope, because they're still exciting players, but Twins fans like, oh great, we're just going to get a bunch of six more one-year rentals next offseason because there's no ownership drive or motivation or even direction if that's how this trade deadline goes. To me, if I were Twins fans, I would be more excited if we got rid of a Griffin Jax because of the return, because of what that could potentially be. But it could be another missing trade deadline or missing offseason because ownership situation just is still in flux.
Yeah, I mean, all that is definitely true. I agree with all that. And I mean, it is a very frustrating, low morale time last couple of years, basically, since the end of 2023 for Twins fans. Payroll got cut. Team has been underwhelming, all sorts of that stuff like you mentioned. I do think that it is viable if you get a great offer, especially for a relief pitcher. I mean, we know even the best relievers sometimes have a pretty short shelf life. They kind of burn bright, fade away a little bit. And if you can get multiple building block type of young players for a reliever, even if they are a reliever with 2 more years of team control, I do think that's something you can consider. But also, if I'm this front office and I don't know that I'm even going to be around next year, let alone 2027, because first of all, if new owners come in at some point, which obviously Twins fans are hoping for, they might bring in their own people to begin with. That happens a lot. And regardless of that, the Twins are about to miss the playoffs for the 4th time in 5 years. So I think it's fair to question the performance of this regime anyway, which has been in place since 2017. So I definitely agree that depending on the quality of the offers you're getting and the fact that Class A just got taken off the market too, could potentially lead to bigger and better offers for Duran and Jax and Stewart from the Twins perspective. So I definitely think they're smart to listen. And for that matter, if you want to listen on Joe Ryan too, I mean, I'm not against listening. Like, let someone try to go crazy and make you an offer. But I do think that the front office might feel like, do we want to enter into another rebuild or even a step back where it's not going to be good here for a couple of years? Where are they going to be here in a couple of years? Who's even going to own the team in a couple of years?
That was my next question, Aaron, is Derek Falvey's in charge. He's been in charge. They lost Thad Levine. But how handcuffed are they? How much are their hands tied by this ownership. I don't want to call it a problem, but ownership selling, we're not selling, we might sell. If we sell, Joe Polat still has to be part of the ownership group. Like, how handcuffed is Derek Falvey with this team and the payroll and the trades he's actually allowed to make?
I mean, we've seen, you mentioned it, the last two deadlines when they were in a position to be buyers, like clear buyers. I think 2 years ago, they were in first place at the deadline. Last year, they were in the first wild card. Their playoff odds at the deadline the past couple of years were like 70-something%. Now it's 10%, and they didn't do anything. I mean, they brought in like a middle reliever each time and then ended up cutting that guy before the end of the season. And I think a lot of that was their overall lack of aggression as a front office, but it gets also back to what you just said, which is they didn't have any money to add anybody. And any deal they were going to have to make in the last 2 years would have to involve the selling team eating a bunch of money, which is going to cost you more prospects from the Twins' point of view, or would have to involve money coming in and money going out, major league for major league deal, which that's a very tough needle to thread all the time. I think this time around, any trade they make is going to be shedding money. They already shed $4.5 million with the Paddack deal because they included Randy Dobnik's contract in there too. You know, if they end up trading the 3 or 4 other names that I mentioned, Castro, Bader, Coulomb, etc., they're going to shed over $10 million. Now, am I confident that money will ever be reinvested in the team on the field? Absolutely not. I've been covering the Twins way too long to know that. But, it is, I think, a factor. But then the thing you have to worry about, would they get better prospects, let's say, for Chris Paddack? And I think they got a decent prospect. Enrique Jimenez is a decent prospect. But could they have gotten a higher level of prospect or maybe a second decent prospect if they would have eaten $4.5 million or $3 million in that deal instead of having the Tigers take it all on? And so I think that's another example of, yes, the payroll's been slashed since 2023. Yes, the front office's hands are tied, but even in a selling position, not, trying to maximize the money saved could hurt the return you're getting on some of these deals.
Do you have the best VPN in the game? Are you saving enough on your VPN? You got to check out surfshark.com/Val or use the code FOUL at checkout on the site to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. There's a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee at surfshark.com/Val. Kratz, if you're on the go a lot, you got to check out Surfshark.
It's a no-brainer. I'm at the beach, so I should know something about a surf shark. Just saying. Get it done. 30 days.
That's right. Secure your digital life with Surfshark VPN. You can hit the link below for 4 extra months of Surfshark, either on the podcast page or on the YouTube channel. Don't let online threats catch you off guard. This has been your tech update. You want to keep your data safe and make sure you check out Surfshark today. It's a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can secure your digital world right now.
At the All-Star game, Byron Buxton absolutely squashed any decisions or talk about getting traded. He said, I have a no-trade clause. I love Minnesota. Is that good for the Twins? Is that good? Yes. Oh, man, I get to keep my jersey for another, count of years. But you also sit there and you go, Byron Buxton, you kind of want to go somewhere that, may want to be investing in the team? Or is it just a, hey, that's neat, Midwest baseball, cool, we get to keep Byron Buxton?
There's a little of that. I will tell you that probably like many flyover states, the people of Minnesota, and I'm a lifelong Minnesotan, there's a little chip on everybody's shoulder because stars often leave here. Very rarely do non-homegrown stars talk the way that you just described Buxton talking, how he said, Minnesota's home, I don't want to leave, I want to retire here, on and on. And he didn't just say that at the All-Star game. He's been very consistent about that since he signed his extension a few years ago and demanded a no-trade clause, not because, some players get a no-trade clause and they figure, well, I can get a little more money or leverage out of this if the time comes that they want to trade me. I think Buxton just got it. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He's got 3 kids and a wife. They like it here. He's comfortable with the Twins. They drafted him. They developed him. And yes, could he get traded to a contending team and maybe make a playoff run this year? Sure. But also, if you're a Twins fan, you want the players to believe it's not 10 years away, right? Like, no matter how bad this season has been and how frustrating last season's collapse was, you do want Buxton to believe deep down we could make a run at it next year. We can make a run at it in 2027. And I do think they have some of the pieces in place, which is why, trading Joe Ryan or trading Duran is a tougher decision than it would be, I think, for a lot of selling teams. But in general, I think it's a good thing for the people of Minnesota to have a superstar player who is a good dude and a good player on the field who actually enjoys being here and is making it clear he wants to be here. And I know everyone will go, well, but they could trade Buxton and they could get some massive haul. Okay, you get two prospects, maybe 5 years from now, one of them's half as good as Byron Buxton. Like, I do think there's a little bit of a myth of a rebuild. And the Twins have gone through rebuilds where you come out after 5 years of being terrible, you win a couple of division titles, and then that's all you get. That's sort of where they're at now. So I think in general, I like the comments Buxton said, and it's also just consistent with what he said the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, I just want to stop you there. I came up with the Twins. I never wanted to leave. There was a lot of guys that I came up with that didn't want to leave, and they either got traded away or pushed out. So I don't agree with kind of what you just said. Like, there's a lot of people that I played with in Minnesota that wanted to stay there their whole career. Like, I was traded. Minkiewicz, he wanted to stay. He was traded. There's a ton of guys. Torrey Hunter left as a free agent. He got paid, and they were never going to pay him. But there was a lot of guys, trust me, that wanted to stay. I loved my time in Minnesota. So don't just say, like, oh, no, I loved my time there.
I think that's a good point, actually, because he got paid. Like, he got a 6-year, $90 million, $100 million total because he had one more year of arbitration. And at the time, he was even more injured than he's been the last couple of years. So he took sort of a $15 million a year, which is not all-star level money, but there was the injury risk built in there. And so that is one of the biggest extensions the Twins have ever given out. And like you said, you had plenty of very good young players who were in position to get extensions in the early to mid 2000s. And the Twins just really didn't spend any money at that point. And they don't spend now, but they really didn't spend back then. And so I definitely see what you're saying, that a lot of Twins stars or borderline star players were traded away in past years. They had no choice. He's one of the few that's gotten paid. And I think, if this was a past regime or he came up with you at the time, like you said, when Torrey Hunter, he probably would have left already for free agency. And I think it's a little bit of a different situation just because he did actually get the extension that a lot of guys on the teams that you're talking about, which was a much more successful era and had all kinds of homegrown star guys, but they didn't really pay anybody, including, Torrey Hunter, including Johan Santana, all kinds
David
of
Ortiz, David Ortiz,
exactly.
Wow.
Kadire, Morneau, they all walked away.
That's true, yeah. Well, they kind of let Ortiz go.
They let Ortiz go for nothing because
$2 million is what they would have had to pay David Ortiz for the season that they cut him. That is even for the Twins, that's not much.
Yeah, it's not like they couldn't afford him. They just didn't evaluate
because
him.
They thought they had other guys coming.
They didn't
Morneau
like him.
was one of them, and also they didn't love 100 strikeouts. David struck out a lot. Right? So they didn't love that. We were told, you don't strike out 100 times. Well, now 100 strikeouts is a great year for most of the guys.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, you only struck out 100 times. You're Luis Ariz.
He's a contact.
Yeah, seriously.
Game has changed. All right, so I'll finish the way we started. What are the Tigers getting in Chris Paddack? Because apparently some other insiders were saying that teams like the Rays were in on Paddack. That's according to John Heyman, although that one's kind of interesting because I thought the Rays are selling, but maybe they're buying and selling. Bob Nightingale said the Yankees were pursuing him. So clearly some teams were into Paddack, and he's always had that potential. But this year it's a 5-ish ERA, really bad in his last 8 starts, a lot of homers. What was going on?
I think you're definitely right. I was told that they had a handful of teams interested, which is how they ended up dumping the whole salary and getting a decent prospect back. I think I've watched a lot of Chris Paddack over the last 3 or 4 years, and the description you gave is right. Like, there are starts where you watch him and the fastball is 95 plus consistently, and the changeup is good, and he pounds the strike zone, and he controls the game. And you talk to him afterward, and he says all the right things, and you go, "Wow, this guy is really in control of what's going on, and I want to bet on him having a next 5 starts going really well." And then the next start, he gives up 8 runs. And I think this year, what we saw that's even different than the frustrating aspects from past years, strikeout rate went way down. I mean, when he came up with the Padres, he was a changeup pitcher whose fastball wasn't that good, but he got such swing and miss with his changeup. Now he's basically a 4-seam guy and works off that, and his changeup and breaking ball don't even get swings and misses. It's been a really weird kind of comeback post-second Tommy John surgery, the pitcher he's turned into. But I think from the Tigers' point of view, I know they lost Reese Olson for the season, so I'm sure they figured, can we just sort of inexpensively, in terms of prospect capital, fill the 4th or 5th spot in this rotation? Because they got to figure he's not going to start a playoff game for them, but they got to get to the playoffs. They can't exhaust their bullpen. And I do think, every 5th day, trying to get him through 5 innings is going to be a better bet just from a veteranness standpoint, strike throwing standpoint, than maybe some random AAA guy or some even lower wattage trade they can make. But I would be surprised if he had a big impact for the Tigers. Although I will say I'm a little bit intrigued by the idea that they could move him to the bullpen down the stretch, maybe at preparation for a multi-inning role in the playoffs. Because when he first came back from the second Tommy John in 2023, the Twins did that for a handful of appearances in September, and he was throwing upper 90s, borderline 100 at that point. So I do think, fourth or fifth starter for now, and then maybe shift to the bullpen in October could be somewhat intriguing for them.